My name is Wayne Boyce. I was in the Army from 1969 to 1968 to 1971. I actually was supposed to be in the Army till 1972, but Vietnam was winding down by that point, and they gave service members an option to get an early out, which I took. It was a 3-month early out. So I didn't do the whole 4 years. I did 3 years and 9 months. I was with the Army Security Agency, which is no longer in service. They meshed them in with Army Intelligence. But what we did electronic intelligence. I flew in a Huey the whole time I was in Vietnam. What we would do is triangulate enemy transmitters when they would send messages, and then we would send the coordinates in, and they'd either use artillery, airstrikes, even we've even had B-52 raids. If we picked up a big target like a battalion size, they would actually schedule a B-52 run, which is also known as an arc light. And they're massive. They're just unbelievable. I flew right over top of them already when they were exploding, and it's just unbelievable. You would actually see full trees come up out of the dust and twirl and then fall back down again. And but other than that, I really enjoyed flying. I loved it. I probably was one of the few people that would see results of our work or your work. Most people will do things that they hand it off to somebody else, and maybe down the road somewhere, action's taken, and they don't even know about it most of the time. I actually watched the things happen that the information we gave them. I saw what would happen, very quickly.
Well, what was it like when you first got to Vietnam?
Terror. When you're flying in there, they tell you, okay, we're going to be landing, and the plane got very quiet. There's 240 of us on a plane. It was a big jet. It had the three seats in the middle, and then 2 seats on either side of it, and the whole thing's filled, and everybody's halfway over there, because it's like a 13-hour flight, and the guys they're raising Cain. That they wouldn't give you alcohol was a good thing. That'd have been a mess, but they were just guys just playing around, throwing paper wads at each other, and the pilot came on and said, okay guys, just to let you know, we're going to be landing in Vietnam, in Bien Hoa, in about 30 minutes. Just so you know where we are. We're right out over the Indian Ocean at this time. You could hear a pin drop. Everybody got real serious and just sat down, because this is the real thing now. And of course they come on and they tell you, now, when you don't even go into a terminal like you would around here. They actually had the steps that would slide up, and you go down the steps onto the tarmac, and then over to the terminal area. And they said if we start having incoming, get on the ground and crawl to the nearest, what they call a revetment, which is something to block. So if an explosion goes off, you have a little cover. And you're like, oh my God. And when they opened that door, you could smell. Vietnam had a smell to it. I don't know how to describe it. It was like dead fish, sweat, just everything turned into one. It was like, oh my goodness. Now, after you were out and you were in it for a couple days, you didn't even notice it. But when you first get there, you definitely, because everybody was saying, oh my God, this place stinks. So that's, it was, quite an experience. We never, we didn't get any incoming or anything like that. But you're so apprehensive, and they'll tell you, well, you got to watch out for snipers too, because snipers will start shooting from off the base. Nothing like that ever happened to us. I don't know how many times it happened before. Probably happened, and I guess they just tell you just in case, so you know what to do. To go get low and start crawling. But other than that, I mean, we made it through there and went in, and then you were given your assignment where you were going in Vietnam, and I went up with the 1st Air Cav in a little place called Phuc Vinh, which was about 50 miles north of Saigon, I guess it was, and that's where we flew out of every day then. After we flew for a while, I flew probably 6-7 months. The Vietnamese and North Vietnamese, Charlie, they got smart. When we fixed a target or triangulated, I said fixed one time. Somebody asked me what I did in Vietnam, and I said, I fixed enemy transmitters. And they went, why would you do that? I said, you think I repaired them? And he went, well, yeah, you fixed them. I said, no, I triangulated. I made a fix, So anyway, they got smart, because what you're not taking the signal off the radio itself. You're taking it off the antenna. So what they used to do, to get more power out or longer, they would stretch antenna wire up to the top of the tree and then transmit from there so it would get out further. Well, what they finally figured out is, we're coming in there and hitting them with a whole bunch of stuff shortly after they would transmit. So they got smart. They started putting the wire up in the tree, and then they'd stretch it out for, 1,000 yards, stretch the wire out and sit over there. And then when we came in, we're over here bombing that antenna, and they're sitting over there just laughing like, you dummies. So the general that was in charge of 1st Air Cav, he said, is there any way you guys can get a visual or something on to make sure that the troops are at that place where you fix the target? We're like, yeah, it'll be dangerous, but yeah, we can do it. So that's what we started doing, and that's probably why those guys got shot down. What we started doing is going down and look, and I mean, you actually wanted to take fire to make sure that, so you'd be up there and all of a sudden you'd see tracers coming at you, it's like, and you tell the pilots and they'd say, okay, let's get the hell out of here, But there's many times that we went down and I saw people running, and I was at an M16, and we're shooting at them and they're shooting at us, and we'd fly back later and find bullet holes in the side of the helicopter. The only time I ever felt we went down underneath the jungles have a canopy, and under that canopy sometimes it's really open. We actually you'd find a hole, and you could actually take the helicopter down through the hole, and once you're down there, you could fly the helicopter down. Now you couldn't get back up again. You had to find another hole to get back up. Well, we were down there one time, and they started shooting at us, and the pilots are like, "Oh my God!" They came to like a dead end. They couldn't go any further. They had to back the helicopter the whole way back to where we came down, and we had to make sure. I mean, we kept shooting, to keep these guys down, because we had nowhere to go. We were sitting ducks. But he finally got it back that he could get it up out of there, and we were speechless for a while, because it was very scary.
And that was probably the closest call you had?
Yeah, other than being on that helicopter that I got off of, and and the one that I was in, the one that crashed. Yeah, and that was not that we weren't shot down. We were we had mechanical failure on the helicopter, and we had to, in a helicopter, you can glide them just like a plane. It's called auto rotating, and what they do, the props are actually your wings. So what they do, they let it's like a controlled descent. They let the helicopter fall down, and the air now is going up. It's like a fan blade when the fan's off. If the wind hits it real hard, the fan blade will start turning. It's exactly what happens when you auto rotate. And what they do, they get that helicopter turning at such a speed, and when they finally go down to the ground, when they're right above, like let's say 2 to 3 feet on top of the ground, they pull pitch on those, which actually like pulls the helicopter kind of up, but then it just floats back down. These pilots would do this to each other sometimes. They would roll off just as a training thing, they would roll off, and they would tell you right away, training, so you knew it wasn't for real. Then the other pilot would, he would simulate that he's got a problem, and he's going to take the helicopter in, and he would actually fly the thing in and put it right down on the ground, and the other pilot would look at him and say, hey, did a fantastic job, let's get out of here, Well, this time we felt the shudder when the engine quit. I felt the shudder. I was like, and you're thinking this is all a joke, and he comes on and goes, no, this is the real thing, guys. Hang on. And he gets on the radio, and I can always remember, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is Jaguar 452, power outage or something like that going in, And he gave coordinates where we were, because we always knew where we were because we had the maps right in front of us. So he gave the coordinates, and they flew the helicopter to an area that was it was what they called an LZ, a landing zone. It was just for helicopters, though. It wasn't for planes. And it was mainly South Vietnamese troops there, but there was one B team there, and that's a Special Forces B team. It was like 3 Americans, and the rest were all South Vietnamese, and they were just there to help them out. Anyway, that was the closest place we could get the helicopter to. So the pilot, he said, hey, you guys, you're going to have to help me out when we get close to the ground. I'm going to look for a nice open area. But see, when you're up on top, you look down, everything looks flat. So you could have like a big hill. You can't land the helicopter on a hill, So if you get down there and you go, oh my goodness, that's a hill, you have to tell the pilot, hey, it's a hill down here. Okay, and then he can move it around a little bit. Well, as we were going in, everything looked fine, and we were on what I would call final approach. He was going down, and about 20 feet off the ground, I looked. We're going into a minefield. I can see these little tiny red things sticking up. That means it's a minefield, so you don't walk through it, unknowingly. And I hollered, minefield, and he goes, Jesus, and he pulled pitch on the helicopter. It jumped us up to about 200 feet, but it jumped us up to the side, so now we're outside of the minefield, but here we are at 200 feet, and the blades stop. And we went, boom, and we hit. That's when it snapped off the skids underneath, broke the tail section off from the rest of the helicopter, and the pilots couldn't get out because they're on their seats. They have what they call a bullet bouncer. It's a piece of lead actually that slides up so they don't take a bullet in, from the side. And when we hit so hard that those bullet bouncers tipped forward and they were jammed. We couldn't get them open. Now you can't get out of the seat and get out of the helicopter, So finally, I think one of us took our M16s, and just started like banging on it, and got the one open, and finally got the other one open too, because they can't see what's going on. All they saw was smoke. They thought we were on fire. We were not on fire. There was smoke, but we weren't, quote, on fire. There was no, nothing was burning at that point. But they didn't know that. They just saw the smoke and thought the thing was on fire. And helicopters are made of magnesium, and they burn very quickly.
So what was it like when the process of you leaving Vietnam?
That was not a good deal. I flew back into California. Probably the same place I took off from. Fort Edwards? Fort Edwards in California. We flew back in there. You have nothing. The only thing I had jungle fatigues on when I left over there, and everything else you had to. I didn't bring any of my Nomex flight suits. None of my other fatigues, which is the green shirt and the green pants. I just had on what I had. You were trying to travel as light as possible, So when we came back, they actually talked to you about what to expect, and they told us. They said, "This is not the same. This is not the same United States that you left from. Things have changed." And that was during the big '69 was during the big anti-Vietnam things. Woodstock happened in 1969. That was all anti-war. And anyway, they told us, they said, you're going to experience things when you go to the airport to leave, to go back home. Please don't get involved. Words don't hurt you. You've been shot at, so words are not going to hurt you. Let them say whatever they were going to say, and just ignore them, and don't get into because you'll be in more trouble if you get into a fist fight with somebody. There will be police officers there. If you think you need them, go over and say, "Hey, these people are harassing me," and they said the police should take care of it. And off we went. I got they make you a brand new uniform. I mean, they have tailors there 24 hours a day making uniforms for you. So I got my uniform, they give you a ticket for your flight. I was getting a flight from San Francisco to Baltimore, Maryland, because that was the closest airport to my hometown of York, Pennsylvania. It's only about 50 miles away. So I got my ticket and everything, and they give you a little bit of money, because when you're over in Vietnam, they give you what's called MPCs, military payment certificates. They're not good in the U.S. You need greenbacks. So they gave you, I think they gave us like $100 just so you could, if you wanted to buy a sandwich, or because you already had your flight ticket, you didn't need anything for that. But I was out waiting. Cabs would drive. They'd drive up and drive around up there and pick up anybody that was waiting. But when I got out there, there's no cabs there at first. I'm like, holy heck. Well, finally here, I see one coming up the road, and he turns around to go back down, and he stops. He says, you headed down to San Francisco? I said, I am. He said, come on, buddy, I'll take you. I said, okay. So I threw my suitcase, I had a suitcase, that's right. I threw my suitcase in the trunk and got in, and all of a sudden the one back door opened. Here's another GI, and he goes, "Hey, buddy," he said, "can I split the cost with you and ride with you?" I said, "Sure." So because it cost us, we're about 30 miles from the airport, so this is not going to be a $2 ride. It's going to, and I forget what it did cost, but we split it and gave him a tip. And the first thing I saw though, he told us as he's driving down, he said, "Okay, you guys," he said, "you're not going to like what you see when you get here. I'm just going to warn you." He said, "They're going to try and he said, don't let them take your uniform off of you. Holler for the cops or something." He said, because they want uniforms. All the hippies wore like army jackets and stuff like that. Anyway, we're driving in there, and I see this big white, wasn't even a sheet. It was much bigger than a sheet. It was huge. And it said, "Welcome back, baby killers." And I'm like, I never killed a baby in my life, you know. But anyway, we got out, and of course they see the car coming, and they know right away when they see the uniform, you know, and they come rushing at you, and they want to put flowers on your. Oh, and the one thing we were told: do not let anybody to put anything on your uniform. The only thing on your uniform are the medals that you won, or your patches. That's it. So I finally got out, and of course they're coming over, and you know these girls are saying, "Come on with me," and be on our side, you know. And I'm like, "I'm sorry, man, I'm going home." No, 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 show your disdain for the U.S. government. And this, I said, I don't have any disdain. So finally, a police officer, big black guy, comes walking over to me. And I feel this on my shoulder. I'm like, oh, and I look over and he goes, calm down. He said, follow me. He said, we're going to get you out. They were not allowed inside the terminals doing their anti-war demonstrations. So he said, I'm going to get you inside. He said, you won't have to worry about these clowns. I said, okay. So he took me up to the door and he said, have a good life, man. I said, thank you very much. And, I went, and that was the end of that. But it was, there were no, I don't want to say, there were no parades for us. There's just nothing, you felt like you just did something bad, and primarily all you were doing was trying to stay alive.